Happy Thursday, everyone. This is Emmanuel for History and Coffee with our On This Day series for April 11th. Today we are honoring the birthday of civil rights activist Viola Liuzzo, who was born on April 11th, 1925 in a Pennsylvania town called California. She was murdered for and during her activist work in 1965. Let us therefore examine the work that she was doing to honor her legacy. Immediately following the March 1965 Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, both in Alabama, Viola Liuzzo volunteered her time to drive demonstrators back to Selma in her car. Liuzzo was white and drove with 19-year-old African-American organizer Leroy Moton. When they stopped to fill up her car with gas, they faced a barrage of derogatory racial comments. These came from 4 members of the local Ku Klux Klan, who then followed Liuzzo and Moton in their car. The white supremacists intentionally bumped into the rear of her car and then pulled up beside her. They then shot at Liuzzo and Moton and killed Liuzzo with numerous bullets to her head. The car then crashed into the ditch. Thankfully, Moton survived. Shortly thereafter, President Lyndon B. Johnson decided to make this into a national story. He went on national television and emphasized that 4 suspects were in custody and justice would be served. He stated, quote, "Mrs. Liuzzo went to Alabama to serve the struggle for justice. She was murdered by the enemies of justice, who for decades have used the rope and the gun and the tar and the feathers to terrorize their neighbors. They struck by night, as they generally do, for their purpose cannot stand the light of day." End quote. As historian Robert A. Pratt writes of Johnson's comments, quote, "It was clear to all observers that President Johnson had taken an unusual interest in Viola Liuzzo's murder, perhaps because, as some speculated, she was a white woman, the only white woman to be killed in the civil rights movement. The president announced that he had empowered the attorney general to create new legislation to combat the Klan, and that he had also encouraged Congress to investigate the Klan and other violent organizations as well." End quote. It is interesting to consider the race and gender dynamics involved in this case. Additionally, an undercover FBI agent was in the car from which the attackers shot and killed Liuzzo. He was 34-year-old Gary Thomas Rowe and had been an FBI informant since 1960. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover then launched a smear campaign against Liuzzo in an effort to draw attention away from Rowe's undercover work for the FBI. Hoover leaked a message to the American public through the media that Liuzzo came to the South in search of black men to have romantic relationships with. It is unclear to what extent this smear campaign influenced the outcome of the court cases that followed. What is clear, however, is that Liuzzo's attackers received individual 10-year prison sentences that could have been substantially longer given the nature of the homicide. According to scholar Mary Stanton, quote, "Viola Liuzzo would become the most controversial of the civil rights martyrs," end quote. Why might this be the case? 1 week after Liuzzo's funeral, KKK terrorists burnt a cross outside of her home. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you will join me again tomorrow for the next edition of our On This Day video series.